Hello and good morning, everybody. Let me know if you can hear me okay. I'm just adjusting the stream a little bit so that the video comes through a little bit better. Thank you for joining. And if you're new here, my name's Darren Yu. I'm an artist from Melbourne in Australia, and I run these watercolor workshops each week to show you a few different processes that I use to paint portraits, to paint landscapes. I also do pen and wash, so line and wash illustrations too, which is another style where you use pen and then you go over the top with watercolors. So I'm very excited to do this one. It's a special workshop, and last week I visited my grandma, actually, as every now and then I go over on weekends to catch up with her, see how she's doing. And I snapped this lovely photo of her. Isn't she cute? So I'm very close to my grandma, and I guess, yeah, when I was a little boy, she looked after me quite a lot, because my parents, they just moved to Australia, just like migrated over to Australia, and they didn't really have too much time to look after me during the day because they were both working. So my grandma looked after me, and she just basically spent a lot of time with me when I was a boy. So it feels like she's kind of like a second mother to me at times. So I've done a portrait of her before, a couple of portraits of her before, but I haven't done one for a little while. So I thought, why not? I'd snap this picture, and I really, really liked it. And sometimes when you search for a portrait subject, it's, especially if you're taking your own photographs, a little tip. I'm not the best photographer. I'm still learning, of course, but sometimes when you ask people to look at the camera and smile, it's a bit of a facade. They sort of just put on this smile. There's a certain, I can't remember what it's called. I think it's called a Duchenne smile or something like that, where, they exaggerate the corners of the mouth, that kind of thing. And they just look a little bit awkward. And so usually what I tell people when I'm going to take a photo of them, I just say, go about your daily thing. Just do what you do, but I'm going to snap a few photos of you. So I think that gets them a little bit more relaxed. You can sort of distract them as well. I sort of, I have the camera by the side, and I'd be like, oh, so, what's this thing over here? Do you like that? And they'll kind of look over, and then suddenly they'll just lose that, lose that camera pose, and then they just look a lot more natural. So I think I caught this photo of my grandma. She was, I don't know what she was doing. We were just talking at the table, and my mum was behind doing something, just helping cook something. And I snapped this photograph of her, and I thought it was quite sweet. So yeah, I'm going to attempt this one today. And here's the drawing. So for those of you who haven't had a look at the drawing, it is in the discussions tab. There is a little, hang on, I'll lower what I'm going to do, I'm just going to lower the brightness a little bit on this, because I think it's, oops, it's probably a bit too bright. I can lower the brightness on my actual light. I think that's better, guys, because let me know how that is. It can be tough to sort of tell. Sometimes bits and pieces will be overexposed, so I just want to make sure that you can see all okay. But what was I going on about? So yeah, like I said, this is the drawing. It's in the discussions tab on Facebook, and you'll be able to see a pinned comment. You can have a look at that. And also on YouTube, there is a comment in a little link that I pasted that links you to the communities tab, and you can go on there. It's also in there in the communities tab. So I'm going to have a look at the chats and give everyone a few minutes to jump in. And just going to have a quick look over on Facebook. We've got, going to turn my head over to this side because I've got another screen. We've got Tom Brawley from Snowy Bottom. We've got Pamela from Kentucky. I see Kentucky. Welcome, Tom and Pamela. We have got, Tom says perfect. And Margaret says, morning, Darren. All good. I can hear you. I'm working on YouTube. Watching you on YouTube on the big telly. I hope my eyes will be better this week. Yeah, Hope so too, Margaret. And you've done so well with your last two portraits to give them a go. Try to, like I said, try to enlarge the head and the face as you know, as big as you can on the page. As you can see, this takes up almost the whole page. It's, you know, so you're not going to have any issues in terms of like detailing. It's going to be a lot easier detailing is what I'm trying to say. When you make the head too small, it can be very, very hard to get in those details. 𝗪𝗙𝗙𝗏 from I see Kentucky too. Thank you for joining, Teresa. We've also got Sinus here. Thank you for joining again. I'm tuning in from Chicago. We've also got 𝗦𝗢𝗙𝗦𝗦𝗘𝗦. Is that right at the bottom there? 𝗦𝗢𝗙𝗙𝗦𝗦𝗘𝗦 from sunny Myrtle Beach. Welcome, Ginger. I don't know if I've seen you here before, but if you're new here, you know, let me know whereabouts you're watching from. You know, drop a comment in, and you know, always interested to hear where all the viewers are watching from. We've also got Lita, and watching from Texas. Welcome, Lita. Thank you for joining. And on YouTube, we've got Pamela Meredith. We've got Neil here as well, and Neil says, in my own language, 𝗪𝗙𝗓. I can't read that. Sorry, Neil. I'm a bit too far from the computer. What language is that, Neil? Be interested to hear. Yvette's here, and she's about to head off as well because it's 7:30 p.m. Awesome. All right, well, it's available afterwards. Yvette. John Chan is also here from Vancouver. Welcome, John. We've got Anna Novakova from the Czech Republic. It's 12:30 here. Wow. And it just brings back memories from when I was over in I did a few days over in Prague, and such a beautiful, beautiful place. So welcome, Anna, and thank you for joining. I think you're new here. Let me know. We've got Shanolan here, and it says, good evening, Darren, fellow watercolorists, and Christina. Christina's here. Christina Rosenliebe. Welcome, Christina. And who else have we got? She's from Ohio. And Ellen Whitney, thank you for joining, Ellen, one of my patrons on Patreon. And we've also, Neil says it's Irish Gaelic. Irish Gaelic, cool. It's I've seen that kind of written down before, and it's like, to me, it seems so difficult to pronounce. Like I have no idea where to even start. Awesome. Righto, guys. So I'm going to go through just a few quick little things to keep in mind during the stream. So the video will be recorded and available afterwards. So that's often a question that people ask. So it will be available afterwards. The only times where it won't be available is if I make like a special stream and I specifically state it's only going to be available afterwards for members. I haven't done any of those yet, but I'm thinking of doing those at some stage. I think 2 streams a week tends to be, you know, plenty enough for me right now. But I'm thinking of doing some bonus ones. You know, I do them every now and then. Another thing to keep in mind is that if you've got questions during the stream, if you don't know what I'm doing, I'm not explaining enough, that sort of thing, just drop a comment in the chats and I will have a look and get back to you. It's very important to know what you're doing. And if you're not sure at any stage, don't feel like that it's a silly question. Just pop it in the chats and I will get back to you. I'm here to support you. And while I'm here online, you might as well just ask as many questions as you can. And another question not a question. Barbara Milham says, hey there from PA, not ready to paint yet, so watching to get my bearings, not even sure if I have the right supplies. Did you sketch your grandma? It's very good. So not even sure if I have the right supplies. Yeah, so I list some of the supplies in the description that you can have a look at. It's not all too many that you need. In this session, I'll show you the brushes that I'm going to be using, just so that you can have a main idea for those of you watching. These are a few watercolor mop brushes here. They hold a lot of water and they have a tip, a nice little tip. So I'm going to be using that to get in most of the washes of the face, maybe a bit of the background. These are small detailing brushes, good for getting details like the eyes, maybe some of the lines on the face. I also have a bunch of these flat brushes here. Flat brushes are good for cutting around later when I'm doing a background. I'm thinking of doing I'm thinking of doing perhaps a darker background or a mixed light and dark background, kind of like what I had for this one here in one of the previous demonstrations that I've done. As you can see, this nice, bits and pieces of things running in here keeps it interesting. So I thought I'm going to carry on with that same type of effect. This was another one that I did recently as well. I think that's it really for the questions. Janet says, watching from Ohio. Welcome, Janet. And there's also Shaw from Texas. Thank you for joining, Shaw. And Jenny too, from Linda, California. Awesome. Alrighty, guys. The question was, did you draw your grandma? So yes, what I did for this one is that I used a technique called the gridding technique, and basically just allows you to just put in I think I used a 5x5 grid, and basically transferred over. It's a lot quicker for me, because especially because I run these fairly regularly, I paint fairly regularly. Using the gridding technique just allows you to transfer an image over a lot faster. You still practice your drawing skills. Now, you can also trace. The reference picture is in the discussions, and I've got a tracing template if you wish. You can put it up on your screen and put a bit of paper over the top and trace. Now, I do recommend you also to practice your drawing. So I do a lot of little portrait sketches. I don't know if I can pull one out. Just little 5-minute sketches. And these are so important to do because there are going to be times where you can't rely on those particular techniques, and you need to be able to just sketch in freehand, a bunch of portraits, be able to estimate where the nose is, the distance of the eyes, that kind of thing. So super important. Show you a few bits and pieces I've been working on recently. These are just a bunch of other portraits if you want to know roughly the type of work that I've been doing. So here's a few that I've recently been working on. So we're going to follow this same sort of methodology. The paper I'm using is cold press paper, and the colors that I'm using, they're going to be basically, I only use about maybe 4 or 5 colors in most of my portraits. So a red, a yellow, usually a red and yellow for lighter skin tones. And then perhaps a bit of neutral tint, a bit of darker paints, a bit of gray, a bit of blue in there. But that's about it. There's not too many colors that you need in here. Teresa's asking, can we share our portraits with you for advice? Yes, you can. So if you go to the group, facebook.com/groups/watercolor mentor, that will allow you to share it with our group. We've got 1,500 something members. We've also got another big group that's just called Watercolor Beginners, and it's a group that has about maybe nearly 130,000 people in there. But the smaller group, the Watercolor Mentor community, that just has a little bit more of a personalized feel, because the people who go there, who post their work there, they're people who basically they're just anyone who's watching these demonstrations. So you will find that you'll get a bit more support there, a bit more tailored support. I do check that one fairly regularly as well, and I try to get back to all of you with a bit of advice. If you want specific advice and constructive feedback, just mention that. I tend not to really give too much constructive advice unless people ask for it. People paint for different reasons, and I don't want to be too obtrusive and start commenting on this and that. So if you want anything specific, just ask me. So what I'm doing at the moment, I'm mixing up, you can see on the right side of the palette, let me shift this over a little bit there, right side of the palette, a little bit of yellow ochre and a little bit of red. Now this red is cerulean red. Okay, and I'm trying to match her skin tone, my grandmother's skin tone, and it has a yellowish kind of something's got a yellowish sort of tinge to it. I haven't even got the reference photo up. Let me bring that up. And that's another thing. If you've got the reference photo, bring it up on the side of the screen, and then also have the video playing at the same time. That's going to save you a lot of time. Be able to look at that reference and without having to swap back and forwards between things. Okay, so I'm mixing up a lot of paint here, and I'd say I'm using a more yellow in this mix. Okay, so I'd say about, geez, 65 to 70% yellow, and then the rest of it just red. Okay, trying to get in a little basic, bit of some pinkish tones on her face, as well as some yellow, because it's not just yellow. And what we're going to do, like I said, we're just going to have to mix up enough of this. The consistency, I'd say, is about 25% paint and 75% water. So mostly water, because what we're doing at this stage is that we're just getting in all the light areas. And continuing on. I'm just going to make sure I got the... You just have the stream monitor out so I can see what is going on. Sometimes I jump out of, sometimes I move things around and I miss that out. So I'm just gonna enlarge that a little bit. Okay. But let me know if you have any questions about materials or anything at this stage. Let me know. Sometimes I do miss out bits and pieces. Oh, Yvette says she's staying. Okay, cool. I might have. Fantastic. Anything else? I think we're all good to go. So a lot of this paint just mixed up on here because we're going to need to get in a nice wash over the entire face. Okay, I think that looks all right. And always remember, when you paint, it's always going to dry a bit lighter when you're using watercolors. So let's have a try. One thing I've noticed is that the right side of her face is a little bit more yellowish because it's kind of facing the sun. So like on this side there, a bit of sunlight. So I'm just putting in a bit more yellow on that side of the face here. Whoops. And see how I've gone outside the line there? Don't worry too much about that. Just continue on. Now, because we're making the background a bit darker, what you're going to find is that basically the you're not going to see that line anyway. Okay, here is when I kind of got to be a bit more careful just where her hair starts, because it's a very soft edge. And I'm actually not 100% sure how I am going to pull this one off, but I'm going to create a little edge like this, conservative sort of edge, give it a bit of a buffer. I'm going to go around. I know the hair sort of stops here, like that. But actually, for example, on this side of the head, it's actually still pretty dark. You can see the shadow kind of comes across her head there and then runs down her eye, that kind of thing. So I will put in perhaps a light wash of something up the top there. I've got a little bit of this other color, which is like just left over, just a bit of a gray color. And I will put that over the top here. Very, very light wash and soften that off. I've got the canvas on a slight angle as well. Okay, just bring that down a little bit like that. Just want to get in that soft shadow on her head there. And what you do is that, you just wet down the edge of it like that. Okay, I'm just going to connect that up a little bit. We'll leave some bits of white in there too. Okay, continue on down her face. Let's look at it. There's a bit more yellowy sort of color. I pick up a bit more yellow, put here, just on her cheek. Okay, where it looks a little bit more yellowish because of the sunlight. Here underneath here, on the right side of her face, just a bit here, and in there. And I really hope I pull this one off. Okay, otherwise I'm going to get in trouble. So there we go. And I think I mentioned this before. I think it was a quote from Turner, and he was saying every time he paints a portrait, he loses a friend. So let's stay positive, guys. Let's stay positive. I'm cutting around the lips, okay, because I want to drop in a little bit of pink and maybe some neutral tint in there, just to dull it down a little bit. And you'll find that if you do that while the edges of the lips are still kind of wet from that previous layer of paint, you're going to have a much easier time, much easier time putting it in and making the lips appear more natural. Okay, and notice I've also used a bit of paint, a bit of shading with pencil on the face before to get in some of the shadows and things like that quickly. Okay, I'm going to carry this down here. Okay, there's still a bit of light on her neck, like on this right-hand side. Let's just put in a bit of yellow here, tiny bit of yellow. And I use yellow ochre mainly for portraits because it's just more subdued, and you certainly get a bit more of a natural look rather than grabbing the 𝗪𝗙𝗧𝗥𝗘𝗦𝗦 yellow medium or you know, some of the more lemon yellows, that kind of thing can make your portraits look a bit gaudy, and but it depends on the light. Really depends on the light. Sometimes you get light that's very, very strong and vibrant, so you got to go with what's there. Fantastic. Now things are going okay at the moment. I have a little spray bottle, and I'm going to grab that spray bottle out because we'll need to keep part of this kind of wet. Well, I just want to try to keep part of it wet. Just keep it alive for a little bit. Okay, because we're going to drop in some extra colors. I've got a smaller mop brush here, but I may actually pick up this little one here. It's just a little, what you call it, little round brush, and a bit of red. I'm going to mix this up with some darker color, a little bit of purple maybe, a little bit of purple. Okay, and I'm going to get in her lips. Let's just drop that in. Okay, let's drop that in. A bit of thicker paint. Let's see how that goes. Oops, too much. I need more red in there. And if, you know, if in doubt, just go lighter. Just go lighter, because you can always darken afterwards. I find if you go too dark, it can be tricky to reverse that if you've gone too far down. So a little bit in here. I'm just going to blend that in and see how it kind of blends in a bit more, because that previous layer is still wet. Okay, I love to paint wet into wet wherever possible, because one, it looks more natural, especially with softer edges of the skin, and two, it saves me a hell of a lot of time. Rather than layering as much as I can, I try to complete a portrait or basically any painting with as few steps as possible. One of the things with watercolors is that if you put too many layers, you risk turning it into a bit of an overworked sort of thing, and you lose the vibrancy in it. So often I find just a few layers can do the trick. And also with this portrait, it's going to be a little bit lighter than the actual reference photo. So I'm going to raise it a couple of, I'm going to increase the exposure almost a little bit on there. Okay, so like I said, I've just put in a bit of color in there. Now time to add in some of the shadows. Believe it or not, we need to add in these shadows right now while the paint is still wet, and it allows you to get in a bit of softness in there. Another spray in there for good measure. You know, it's quite hot here at the moment in Melbourne, so I do need this. During winter, it's okay. I don't really, there's not an issue. So there we go. Just a bit of this paint in there. I may use a larger brush, and because fiddling around and dabbing all too much in there is, I've never had anything good happen from that. So I try to get in as much as I can, with as fewer brush strokes as I can. So this is just a bit of neutral tint. I'm mixing it up here. I really want to get more of a grayish color. I've got a bit of this titanium white. I'm just mixing that in there. A bit of titanium white. I want to dull that down, in fact, because this kind of looks a little bit purplish. So I want to get in this kind of shadow here on the left side of her head. And I'll probably have to go in with some gouache later, I'd say. Oh, I've forgotten one crucial thing, and that's her ear. I've forgotten to put in an ear. Always forget some part. Let's just cover that bit like that. Fantastic. Okay. Get rid of a bit of that. I will go in with a bit of gouache later, I think. I want to get in this shadow, but at the same time, I still want some bits of white and stuff showing through the hair. So this is a challenging bit. I wasn't entirely sure how I would paint this, but little really light bits of gray that I'm just adding into that right-hand side, like this. Very, very light. In fact, it's kind of a bit purplish or bluish on that left-hand side, but it doesn't matter. Doesn't matter. Really soft edge there. Notice where the hair finishes off. It's a soft edge, and I've created a hard edge there. So just a bit of a little scrubbing and stuff like that, and we can merge that a little bit better. There we go. That looks better. Okay, fantastic. Let's get back into those shadows. Neutral tint, bit of titanium white in there. I want to just dull this down. It's too bluish. Okay, that's better. Put in a bit of brown, and that looks a bit more grayish. Okay, let's drop this in here, around her head there. Okay, like around here, and it's just going to be a softer edge. Yeah, softer edge. There's a bit of darkness here, underneath the eye, just a teeny bit here as well. I'm just trying to pick out some soft shapes, but the main thing is that we want to get in the larger shadow, this larger sort of soft shadow. You can only do it now while the paint is still wet. If you do it later, it's not going to yeah, you're gonna miss out on this softness. And always good to have some kind of soft shape in your portrait, soft sort of shadows to combine with some of the sharper bits and pieces. Little bit in our ear. We can continue working on the ear later, but you know, just to get it started, something like that. Maybe a bit in here, like that. Let's carry this down. I mean, it's all pretty dark, really, on the left side of the face. So, you know, around the ear here. Let's bring that down. Ooh, too dark. Way too dark, but I think that will soften off in a bit. You'll find that just dries off completely lighter than what you'd expect. Okay, more there. In fact, there's probably a bit more coming up here and up here. Just a teeny bit more. Just gonna continue feathering a bit more paint in here. There. And there. In the corner there. Okay, there. You know, you will notice that this shadow on the left side of her head, it's almost the same color, but her hair does have, because of the little strands of hair in there, it's slightly lighter than the shadow on her face, contrast wise, slightly lighter. So I want to preserve a bit of that. Okay, but I also want to make sure that shadow looks, and it kind of makes sense, you know what I mean? It has to. You know, we can't have a shadow only going on half of her face and the rest of her face looks different. So, okay, so a bit more there. Let's have a look. Bit of a shadow underneath her nose here. And you'll notice if things start to dry off a little bit and you don't want that, give it a little spray. Oh, no. Run out of water in that spray bottle. That's all right. There we go. Now, you want to make sure you get a spray bottle if you do this that has a bit more of a fine mist. It sprays off a fine mist. You don't want to use one of those garden ones because you're gonna be very surprised what happens after that. So just a little bit of softness here. You can see that shadow there. I'm having a look at the reference. Trying to find some bits to connect up with her nose. Bit of the side of her face here. No, let's run out of water. Get some more water. Okay. Bit more water. And a lot of people comment and they say, Darren, you know, how do you time it? When do you actually put this paint in? Because when I put the paint in, it just spreads all over the place. It's a complete mess. The only way to know how to do what I'm doing, and I've not mastered this as well, mind you, I've still got a lot, you know, fair way to go. But the only way to understand this in an intuitive way is to just continually try and wet the paper of different wetness, you know, add some different, you know, some put a little bit of water on some paper, put more on the other bit of paper, wait for it to dry at different times, and then just add in some paint. And after some time, you'll intuitively, intuitive or whatever, just through experience, just start to know the right time to add paint to create a certain effect. And because what I'm trying to do is I'm trying to get a bit of control in here as well. As you can see, I've put in too much dark paint there. Trying to get in a bit of control so that it doesn't spread all too much. Because if it spreads all over to the right-hand side of a face, we're gonna be in trouble too. It's just gonna look too, it's just gonna look too dark on the right side of the face. We want to preserve the light there. Okay, so a bit more here. And again, if you guys got questions, drop them in the chats. And think of this as a learning experience, a learning exercise. So don't, if it doesn't work, or if it's doesn't turn out as intended, you know, you got to remember, I've done this wet and wet technique hundreds and hundreds of times, perhaps thousands of times. So, and I still get it wrong. So use it as a way to just learn and pick up these techniques. Okay. Another thing is step back a little bit and have a look at it from a distance, and you'll be able to see whether the shadow pattern is right or not. And we've got a few comments here as well. Teresa says, do you use a certain pencil for sketch? I use a mechanical pencil. I'd recommend using a mechanical pencil because the lead on top just stays the same thickness or whatever. So another thing that you have to worry less about. And I've actually used this one here. This is a I think it's a 1.3 millimeter lead, but if you're starting out, probably use something smaller, like a 0.5. They're everywhere. You can find them all over the place. Let's have a look. And Margaret says, yours looks so red. It might be the camera settings. Let me just see if I can reduce down. Let me just see if I can just reduce down a bit of the saturation content. I have like a filter thing that I put on it. These preset filters. I think this might be a bit more accurate, Margaret. Okay. And often looks quite red when you put it on, but then it dries a lot lighter and less vibrant. Judith says, love your tutorials. Your artwork is fantastic. In-depth details and explanations. Thank you, Judith, and I'm glad that you appreciate coming along and just how I go through things. I probably go through things in more detail than others. I try to make these workshops standalone for those people who want to learn, pretty much start from finish how to paint a portrait. Teresa's asking, just wondering, do you think it is a mistake to add too much detail, or is more detail better? Well, it depends on your style, Teresa, because it depends on your style, Teresa, because some people like more minimalist portraits. Now, I've got an example one. I can just pull it out quickly. Let me show you. So these are a few really quick little ones that I did. And I might do a class on this at some stage, just how to do quick little portraits. They have their own sort of feel to it. There's no right or wrong. It just depends on your style. Okay, but quicker details like this, you can see they have just a freshness and their own simplistic beauty to them. But this is something else. This is I'm trying to get it to look more like my grandma and like the actual person, and spend more time on it. So certainly it really depends on what you want to achieve. Righto. Kathy asks, what does your grid look like? Where do you find it? So basically, basically the grid it's just a technique that you can find anywhere over the internet. I do have a video on it, but I haven't edited it and put it up on YouTube yet. Basically, you get your reference picture, you draw some lines, some grids through it. Like I use like a 5x5 grid. I use maybe 4cm by 4cm grid, and then you can just transfer that on, draw the same grid on your paper, and just draw each grid section. It's so much quicker than sketching, but I do recommend sketching as well. If you're learning how to draw and paint, it's very crucial. So certainly make sure that you do both. I use a grid. It just makes things quicker. I used to draw them all freehand, but it just takes me a long time, and I want to get these drawings in as quick as I can these days, and as accurately as I can, with the least amount of time put into it. I don't know about you guys, but I think we're all pretty busy, and it's a good sort of middle ground where you can practice your drawing, you can get in a good amount of accuracy, and on the side you can also make sure that you learn how to use general drawing techniques as well. But I haven't gone through this. Haven't really gone through too many of my drawing techniques and stuff, or in a huge amount of detail in these live workshops. I'm thinking of doing a much more detailed one in the future, where I go through everything from start to finish and all the different techniques I use to transfer some kind of like a drawing class as well as a painting class as well. So if anyone's interested in that, let me know in the chats, and I will. I'll try schedule something in. I'll try schedule something in at some stage. Okay. Alrighty. Teresa says, you're great answering my questions. Thanks so much. Also, you mentioned you're using cold press. Do you have a particular brand you prefer? Yeah, so cold press, the reason why I use cold press and hot press are both good for portraits. There's benefits and there's disadvantages of each one. Now, the benefits of cold press is that you can do what I'm doing here. Look at that. You can just drop in paint. It spreads nicely. You get a smooth gradation through everything. There's no lumpy sort of bits or bits that dry funny. I mean, you do get a bit here and there, okay, but it's a lot easier to get in these soft transitions because the paper, one, takes longer to dry, and due to the texture of the paper, it spreads. Hot press paper is kind of like what I was showing you before with this portrait here that I was doing, and you'll notice the sharpness of the details, how sharp everything is. And the paint also looks more vibrant on there as well, because with hot press paper the paint sits on top and it just looks vibrant. But it's difficult to get in soft transitions. See, that took me a while, and it still looks a little bit patchy in areas. It's just how it is. I've just had to accept how that looks. Okay, two different styles. Cold press is more forgiving if you're a beginner. In terms of brands, I'd use whatever you have in, they have more similarities than differences. So I wouldn't get too preoccupied with the brand. I use a brand called Baohong, but you can use Saunders Waterford. I also use Saunders Waterford. I use there's a few different brands, but just make sure they're 100% cotton. That's the main thing, 100% cotton, because this is how I'm able to achieve all these smooth transitions, and I keep layering over the top and adding more color without things going all funny, okay, because I am just continually layering, and the paper allows me to do so. But when you're working on paper that is like cellulose paper, or perhaps undefined watercolor paper, you don't know what it's made from, often you can find that it takes just a few washes, maybe like 2 washes maximum, and then and then it just runs everywhere and it turns a bit messy. So I always say to people, just use the best materials you can afford. So whatever your situation is, I started off with real basic materials. I didn't have any of this stuff. I had I just had a little basic sketchbook to do everything in. So use what you have, but in best case scenario, if you want the best results, 100% cotton paper in cold press or hot press works fantastic. Okay, look at that. I'm still dropping in paint while I'm talking, and you can see already how long this paper takes to dry. And you know, I think that's a good thing for this sort of portrait. I'm quite nervous actually painting my grandmother's portrait. She's probably going to see it later, and hope I'm not going to get in trouble. So, anyway, over analyzing everything. It's kind of like if you had a friend ask you to paint them, and you, and then we're going to look at it after, and yeah, look, if you paint someone that you care about, you certainly a bit more pressure there, let's say. But let's just, thing with painting and the thing with art in general, pressure and anxiety of any sort can muck things up. So just treat it like you're doing anything else. You know, I'm just trying to relax. Just do it like as if I'd be painting anything else, really, and we'll go from there. We'll go from there, and if it works out, it works out. If it doesn't, it doesn't. So, you know, we're not even trying to get in any details just yet. I just want to nail this soft shadow because it's the most important part, in my opinion, of this painting. In any watercolor painting, the wet and wet components add such character, and they form the backbone of everything. It's kind, and then the drawing forms the backbone of the portrait. So everything together has to make sense. Another thing you can do, these little furry edges or stuff like, you can pick up a bit of color like that. You can there's a little bit of highlight on her ear there. There's a bit of highlight here. You can pick up a bit of paint in here. Let me just get rid of that in there a bit. Pick up a bit of paint in here. But like I said, these details I'm going to get in afterwards anyway. So no big deal. Why not? Let's put in some details for her shirt now. I'm going to pick up a bit of pink. And if you don't have pink, I'm just going to just basically use red. So I've got some red. I'm going to mix that also with a bit of buff titanium, like that. This brush is too stiff, so I'm going to use this little one here. And let's just drop in a few little indication of some of these flowers and stuff here, and little flowers. I don't know, just little indications. They don't have to be anything. Anything detailed, you know, just indications of leaves and flowers and stuff, because it's just the top, the clothing she was wearing on the day. Nice little pink and black thingo, like that thing there. There we go. Maybe a bit of something like that. And see how I'm just going very, very light. Yeah. So that's what you want. You want it to be very super light, so that when we go and add in the darker bits, which I'll show you in just a moment, it's going to create a nice little effect going around it. Now, what I'll do, I'll mix up a bit of neutral tint, or I've actually got another color called lamp black, which I've been really obsessed with lately, super obsessed with, because it granulates. I'm going to squeeze a bit out. Let's try this here. I normally don't recommend using blacks, but this is an exception. I've really liked this one because of the granulation and just the unpredictability of things. So there we go. Let's just drop that in. Leave some of the edges untouched, but I want it to kind of blend in nicely here around her face. A little bit more careful, like that. I'm gonna have to redo that, or maybe go darker in that section. You notice around the edges of the face, if you go a bit darker, that will create a kind of what am I trying to say? It'll create a edge for her chin there, jaw kind of thing. In fact, in here it's pretty dark. And there it's actually dark, almost as dark as the shirt itself. Let me get in a bit more pink in here, a bit more around here. That's not. So there's a bit of continuity. Okay, a bit more darkness in there. And, you know, the trick is just to leave, you know, some of that pink going through. Use your intuition, and there's not really a way that I'm deciding which bits to leave in, which bits not to. Okay, but I want to make sure this area is nice and smooth, not overworked, because I don't want to draw too much attention to what she's wearing, just more towards her face. So there you go, just cutting around, but bit here. I find neutral tint, I can get a much darker color by using neutral tint rather than the lunar black, funny enough. So bit there, softer shadow in there. Okay, that's a bit of the 𝗪𝗙𝗙𝗦𝗦𝗘𝗦 there. There's a bit of the folds of the clothes, and you know, with the wet and wet technique that we're using here, you're going to find that basically that it you can add in just some bits and pieces over the top, and it won't. Bit of a spray there. It started to dry. You can add in little bits of black over the top like that, and it just blends in nicely. I want the same effect on this side, and because I'd been working on that side for too long, it's dried. So a bit of a spray down like that, and we can go back into it in the same way. I mean, it's actually better if I'd done it quickly, like on that side. But yeah, sometimes you can't. Sometimes it just doesn't. You know, the timing's just not right. Ooh, this is going to be a sharp edge actually around her neck. I don't know if I can get this in 100% as sharp as it appears, but I'll try. I might have to redo this one a bit later. Or I could just leave it kind of a bit more blurry on that side. That's another option. But I'm going to use a very dark paint here so that it forms a sharper line in that section. Okay, there may be some blending, maybe a little bit of blending, but for the most part, I think we're okay. I'll have to later on add in another layer, perhaps just to indicate that more. A bit more here. Let's just get in, and close my eyes sometimes, and just fiddle the brush around, and you know, so that I'm not thinking too much, overthinking things. It's just, you know, adding in a bit of darkness around the light, like that. Little mini contrast like that. Okay, good. What else can we add in? It's actually a lot darker on that left hand side because of the light source. So I can just drop that in there. I also think perhaps I may have to just darken a bit more on the left side of her face, just slightly. This tone is a little too light, so just readjust again. A bit of pink and a bit of darker paint mixed together. Let's just drop some of that in here. Okay, bit more. That's why I do recommend for beginners, you know, don't bother too much with hot press paper. If you're doing a portrait, softer sort of portrait like this, look how forgiving that is. I can just continue going into there and adding in more paint. And if it goes over, it sort of goes over a cheek, kind of like what it's doing here. Just lift out a bit of paint like that. Okay, you can just drop in the tissue and lift off a little bit like this there. Okay, I probably need to like soften that down a bit. Actually, it looks too bright at the moment. It's another thing when you're working wet into wet that it's tricky. You're kind of fighting against the paint wanting to do its own thing, naturally doing its own thing, but you've got to find a way to sort of work with it. Okay, and just soften this edge a bit there. When it dries, I think it'll be fine. Okay, good. I think I may stop fiddling around with this section for now. I'm going to go dry off dry it off with the hairdryer, and I'll be back. But if you have any questions, drop them in the comments. Okay, that's all dried now. I'm just gonna have a look at the chats to see if there's any more questions. Let's have a look, Kate. Oh, yeah, hang on a moment. Fantastic. Does the paper, so Shaw's asking, does the paper still wet when you are adding more layers of color? Yes, it does. Yeah, if you're using cold press paper like this, it tends to stay wet for a little bit longer, and you can get away with adding multiple layers over the top. Now, if you're using hot press paper, it tends to be a little trickier, but you can still layer over the top. That's why I have this spray bottle. I sort of spray it. The problem with using the spray bottle is that, yeah, it can cause things to spread out a little bit more. I've actually lost a little bit of light onto her face here, a bit of the yellow light, bit here, but I'm going to try and use a bit of lifting techniques later to lift off some paint, and I'll hopefully be able to recover some of that light. But unfortunately, I think some of that light is actually going to be kind of still going to be a bit of reddish looking light here. So yeah, it's the thing in watercolors. You're never able to get it 100%. Yeah, you're sort of just going along going along for the ride at times. You're facilitating the paint, and it's moving around, and it's kind of got its a life of its own. You know, a bit of a funny thing here and here, but I think it adds to the charm of the overall look. It's almost, I heard someone say once with watercolors, it's almost like you just throw the paint on and it's landed in the right places. Fantastic. Quick expressive are great for urban sketching. Yeah, I think you're talking about the little portraits I showed you guys a little bit before. Annette, thank you. Teresa, she'll love it. You're a great artist. I hope so. She'll like it. My grandma's very camera shy, so she's very camera shy, so it was tough to get this photo. Kate says, I can tell you're very close to subject as you're going faster. Kate Jane is new and finding you are very fast. Kate Jane is new and finding you very fast. Yeah. This one, it's certainly a little bit, I probably am going a little bit faster than usual. But I also think what I've done here is that I've fiddled around with the shadows a little bit too much. I reckon I should have just gone in a little bit darker to start off with and just matched it. But sometimes, you know, as the paint is drying, you'll find that some areas are just not as dark, and you need to continue matching and adding a bit more color. I'm going to see what to do actually for this section. It's going to be interesting because I can decide to darken it a little bit more, or really just darken the entire background. That will emphasize the shadows, because when you've got a beautiful soft shadow like that, I really try not to disturb that. You know, but the tones, I think, are making sense, because if you look in the photograph, I've lightened everything a couple of shades. That's if I just increase the brightness or the exposure a little bit. So even the blacks here, they're not really completely black. They're like kind of a transparency sort of black color. Maybe there's a little bit darker. I'll add in some more paint. In fact, what was I doing here? I'd forgotten to mix part of this onto the rest of the clothing. So, you know, sometimes this happens. I forget things like that. Little bits and pieces. There we go. We'll leave that for now. Fantastic. Barbara is asking, do you keep a separate dry brush to pick up paint? It's best to, Barbara. It's best to. I've been a bit slack here, and I've used some other brushes that had a bit of paint on it. Yeah, I'd say it's best to use another brush that doesn't have paint. Use some clean water. Always best practice, I'd say, is to use two buckets of water, two whatever containers of water, one clean and one for like mixing and adding in all the colors, cleaning your brushes. If you're aiming for 100% accuracy or more accuracy, I suppose, use a tissue to dry the brush quickly. Yeah, that's a good tip, Lucia. Really good tip. How will you go back? Barbara's asking, how will you go back and get the bright creases and smile on the left side? Yeah, so I'm going to be trying to use some lifting techniques for that, Barbara. I did lose a bit of that light here on the left-hand side, but I'm hoping I can regain a little bit of that afterwards. Once we put in all the darker bits and pieces in here. Or let me do it before. Let's have a look. Annie says, can we use blue for the darks or Payne's grey strictly? Your choice. Completely your choice, Annie. If you're looking for more accuracy, I would go with like a warm color, like a warm grey color, because that's actually more representational, a bit more warmer grey. On that left-hand side. I mean, I'm just looking at how looking closely at it. It's almost like it's definitely towards the reddish side of things. But I have used probably a bit more of a purplish mix here. Barbara saying hairdryer seemed to wash out left side. What's the technical purpose of using the hairdryer? It's just quicker, so it just lets it dry quicker. So that's why I use it. And Margaret says, struggling here. Stick with it, Margaret. You're gonna get there. And Margaret says, I love the heart shape on the jacket. Did I see one? Maybe I put one in there subconsciously. All right. Let's have a look. Having a look on Facebook, so YouTube. Christina says, "You're amazing. People are so hard to draw and paint. They are. Watercolor portraits are probably the most difficult. The most difficult subject, in my opinion, to paint. So." Christina says, "Well, mine doesn't look like your grandma, so LOL." Doesn't matter. Just have fun doing it. Practice the techniques. Okay. And Pamela's saying grandma's looking good. Thanks, Pamela. I'm sure she'd appreciate that. And Christina's asking thoughts on water brush. I don't use water brushes, and the reason why is because I can't get enough control with them. For the type of painting that I do, water brushes tend to be a little bit difficult to control how much water is in the brush. They also don't hold too much for larger washes, so I tend not to use them. But if I'm out on a sketching trip or just outside, like I'm traveling or something, water brushes are great for the convenience. So that's my answer. Fantastic. And Barbara says, "Thank you for answering my amateur questions. I'll be more prepared to actually try painting next time." Yeah, by all means, Barbara, anything that you have in your mind, I'm always happy to try and answer for you guys. Like I said, the bit of yellow there, I probably if I had another chance, I would have gone a bit more careful with this section there with the wet and wet shadow, and often I give it a bit of leeway. So if I know the lighter bit starts there, what I'll do is that I'll only paint up to here, anticipating that the paint will creep over to about here. It's like playing chess. It's really, for some people, it's frustrating. It was very frustrating for me at the start until you kind of accept that it's going to do its own thing. And sometimes you just have to accept what's, what it does. But, there's still some opportunities. I can lift off some bits and pieces here, which I'll show you later. Christina's asking, can you link some watercolor painting brushes later? Yeah, like if you go to Watercolor Mentor on YouTube, in the description of this channel, if you look at the description of the video, I've got some Amazon links there, some Amazon affiliate links, so if you, that you can go through, and it has all my materials on there, the brushes that I use and stuff like that. So yeah, you can check that out. That helps you. But if you're starting out painting watercolors, I would recommend you getting some proper watercolor brushes. Yeah, so the water brushes are just tricky to use for a beginner. Require, I would say, a lot more skill, and they can frustrate people. So I don't want you to be in that position. Okie dokie. Thank you. Let's have a look. Who else have we got here? We've got Rosanna. I'm painting along. How can I show you? So yeah, Rosanna, there's a group I put together on Facebook. If you go to facebook.com/groups/Watercolor Mentor, you can upload your painting there and get some feedback from everyone. I think it's in the description of the video as well, so you can have a look in there. If you can't find it, let me know after. But facebook.com/groups/Watercolor Mentor. And it's just a group that you can upload, get some feedback. I try my best to get back to all of you, but sometimes it can be tricky. Teresa says, you're a nice young man to take your time and knowledge to help us. This is fun for me, Teresa. I'm so glad that I can share what I know with you guys. I think I'm very lucky to be able to have this platformed, and just to be able to share my knowledge. It's really good fun, and I think you guys really motivate me as well to paint. I know every Wednesdays, every Saturdays, I've got to choose something, I've got to paint. It keeps me consistent, and finding consistency in your painting is the key to getting better at it. And sometimes you may not be in the right frame of mind to paint. You may think, oh, I don't feel like painting, I don't feel motivated, this thing happened today, that thing happened today. And I try not to let those things be the reason for me not deciding to paint. And often when you get into something and you start, starting is the hardest. Everything. Starting is always the hardest part of any, I think, the process of doing anything. And if you can get past that starting stage, then the rest of it comes easy. But thank you, Teresa, and I appreciate you all being here. Kathy says, do you plan to use more lip color in lines? Yes, I do. Yeah, so it's not done yet. It's not done yet. I'm just yapping along and answering some questions. I think that's it. So let's get started on the next bits. Okay, so I'm going to pick up number 4 round brush, little brush like that. Okay, and I'm going to use the leftover bits of paint on the palette. You know, I've got some of this red mixed with neutral tint here. Turn down the aircon. I'm starting to freeze here. So a little bit of grey mixed in with the red. So light, because I don't want to give my grandma too many deep wrinkles. She's going to yell at me. So I'm going to go ahead and pick up a bit of this paint. And we're going to go. Let's just start here, okay? For the top here, just where her eyes are, just these little lines where her her eyebrows are, around about here. Drop in a bit of paint there, okay? And it just takes a bit of, time to just go in and drop in very light sort of lines like this, okay? And I try to break the lines up. What I mean by that is that when you've got a whole line in there, often what happens is that you're going to have lighter bits and you're going to have darker bits. And to imply the lighter bits, I just exclude them. Just exclude those lines. And it kind of appears as if they're just hidden as a highlight or something. So you can see kind of there. It's very subtle. It's difficult to capture on camera, but when you're looking at it in person, you can really tell what's going on. So... I'm not trying to get them in exactly, but I'm just trying to indicate just a few lines and stuff going on up here. Here, like that. There. I really like this expression of my grandma. She just kind of looks like she's trying to hold in a bit of a laugh or something like that. She's a tough lady. I say that, she's a tough lady. Yeah, toughest that I know in my life, and have a lot of admiration for her. So, just some of the struggles that she's been through and come out of it well on the other side. So a little bit of color here on the eyebrows, just a little bit here. There. And just darkening off. You'll notice just around here as well, very, very dark, not dark, but the slightly dark area around her eyes. So I'm going to just add in a bit of color here, and notice how soft I'm going as well, because I don't want to overdo it. Okay, but I do want to create also a bit of shadow in here. Let's have a look, maybe a bit here, a little bit in there. A lot of this dries off to a lighter sort of color anyway. Let's have a look. Darken off a bit more here. Yeah, this is the bit where you can sort of relax in a way, because you're not under any you're not under any pressure of the paper drying or doing whatever. It tends to be the case when you're working wet onto wet. You can just take your time and just get in what you need to get in without too much hassle. So with these lines, you just want to make sure that they are visible still, and the sharpness of them is crucial. So where I was using a lot of softer techniques in the other section there, here I'm using, just trying to get in a few little harder edges in some parts, okay? Even the edges of her eyes, you can start putting in a bit of color in here, just a bit of darkness in there to outline what's going on. Again, and you can, I've actually made it darker in pencil before to help get that part in, like that. You'll be surprised, especially because I've gone so light with the rest of this painting, that just a little bit of color will make a difference. I want to preserve a bit of the softness in here, okay, but at the same time, make sure that there's enough details. As that person asked a question about detailing before, how important is detailing? So this is what I'm doing at the moment, detailing by adding some sharper edges, some sharper lines and areas, but you know, it's a fine line between overdoing it. So play around with this color and the consistency of this color so that you can get just a prominent enough line for areas, but not so harsh that it starts to stick out of the face, because we don't want that as well. Here, I'm just going to darken her eyebrows a little bit on that left-hand side here. Just it comes over like there and just disappears off into the there. But I don't want to overdo it. Just a little bit of darkness in here, like that. Very soft. Not much there. Just a bit like that. Okay. Let's have a look. Some bits of lines and things on her nose. I'm just going to go in and just pop in a bit of a sharper edge here. In here, you know, I've not drawn in actually all the lines and things on her face because I did a few of them here and there, but I've not put them all in, because it can be actually very, very tricky when you're painting a subject like this and you're trying to get in all the details. It's very, very hard. So, you know, I think that just enough that implies what's going on is fine for me. I'm not trying to get everything, every little thing on her face exactly. Okay, there's actually some coming across there. And again, these broken lines like that, they look a bit better, broken like that, so that they're not just, it's a tricky expression also, I'm finding, to paint. Tricky expression because it's kind of like she's smiling, but she's try not to. I don't know. There we go. Just a bit of a line there coming down, kind of down with the nose like this. There's a few little lines coming through there on the edge of her nose here. Let's put in a bit more color. I can just darken off that section of her nose a bit actually in here. There. And because I've missed out, there's more of a shadow that sort of just comes across here on the right side of her nose, which I can just soften this edge, soften that edge with a bit of water. Okay, so, you know, like I was, you know, when we were doing the shadows before, that is not the only time that you can add shadows. As you can see, I'm actually adding some more now. Very subtle ones, of course. They are there. I don't know what, I always just find that if you add a little bit of red on the tip of the nose, that tends to make it look like kind of pop out a bit more. So just a little tip. Left hand side, this is darker, that left nostril as well, just a bit more color in that left nostril there, like that. But there's a little highlight. It's so subtle, but there's like a little highlight in there. It's tricky. I'm going to lift off a bit of that later. But really what I'm trying to do here is get a softness running through for the shadow of her nose, that left side, and get the outline of her nose in with extra details. Going backwards and forth on the on my palette, continually just trying to mix paint and try to get it the right consistency. And then, you know, for these type of portraits where you're trying to just create a bit more softness, going lighter is often a good thing to do, rather than going trying to get it super dark, because you can always go over the top afterwards anyway with a bit of darkness. And I find there's something about the layering of the paints that make it so I don't know, it just creates extra detail in there. I'm going to put in a bit more color for her lip. This top lip here, the bottom lip is actually softer and lighter. So let me just drop in a bit of this paint here, like that. Yeah. Look, be kind of a sharper line actually for a top lip, but I may soften that just a tad later with a filbert brush. You can see a bit of darkness here for the edge of the lip there, dropping a bit of color there, a bit underneath the chin, just this little bit of, just a bit of red mixed with neutral tint. Just using the remainders of the paint here because I don't want to introduce any other new colors in here for the moment because it's going to upset the color harmony. Anytime that you can use less colors, I really recommend you to do so because by using more and more colors in a scene, it just creates an extra factor in there that you have to account for and balance out. So I try to keep things simple as much as I can, but each to their own. Each to their own. Depends on your painting style. Depends on what you want to achieve in there. Yeah, some people paint portraits. I've seen some amazing portraits that have such vibrancy and so many colors in them. So, but I'm saying for portraits where you're trying to, I guess, gain a level of accuracy in them. I find it you much easier time if you reduce the variables. So many variables already in watercolors. So we can reduce them down. We can reduce them down to basics. I'm going to do that. So I have less thinking. I'm a lazy painter, believe it or not. I always admire painters who are able to sit and paint this the same thing for days. I've never been able to do that. I have to finish it. I have to finish it in one go. Otherwise, I don't come back to it. So that's how I guess the way I've developed my own kind of process and being able to accommodate for that, being able to accommodate and paint things in with, quicker. Okay, now let's go into the left side of a face now. Left side of a face. We're not done yet. Like I said, this process is the longest part, and you can just sit here forever, literally just adding in more and more details, more and more. But I find this part very important, and because if we want to get a likeness of the subject, there needs to be you need to really focus in this sort of section. Speaking of focus, I muck that bit up a little bit, but it's okay. You kind of go over the top again afterwards. Okay, that's good because there's a line here that just goes up into our eyebrows. Soft line there. Such a we're dealing with such small tolerances here in terms of like tones and colors. Such small tolerances and differences between areas. So in such situations, small variations in tones and colors that you mix often appear exaggerated in these kind of portraits. I love doing like little, like I was showing you before, those little portrait sketches, simple little things that you can just pull off and quickly paint. Those are good fun to do because you're not you're not having to think too much. In my opinion, you're just really trying to get in a little bit of a likeness. But okay, we're getting there. We're getting there. Soften that off a little bit. Sometimes when the line looks a bit too much, I'll soften it off and continue. Here, let's have a look. There's a bit, almost this bit of here is important because this kind of extends the smile line a little bit. And that's part of kind of her expression. This is hard. We'll go lighter first here. We'll go a bit lighter. There we go. This little bit around the side there. It kind of makes it look like she's smiling more. So have to get this in. Put in some little bits on her face here. Just a bit of textures on her skin. Lightly indicate here and there. While I can. Not too much. Oops. Sometimes it's so, if you get these little, freckles and stuff, this is what I do. Dab on and then touch off. See? Touch off. Touch on, touch off. And that creates a little softness in there, but also a bit of texture. So it's not too harsh. A bit more flattering. Oops, too much there. It's okay. You dab that tissue paper straight on. Yeah, if you dab it straight on just after you do it, you can lift off right away. No problem at all. Get a bit more, this little line underneath the neck here. Okay. You can soften off as well, like I've done. Like that. A little bit softer. There, join. A little bit. We're getting there, everyone. Slowly but surely getting there. I mean, there's enough detail already in here to indicate what is going on, but look, the final bits and pieces I like to do is just add in some extra darks, so I can pick up extra. I mean, this is really dark paint on the edge of the palette. Let me have a look. Where's the dark bits, like here on the corners of the mouth, here, there, coming underneath the lip. This, in fact, it's kind of darker underneath on the top of the lip here, and then it just sort of blends into that bit of purplish red color at the top. Darken more. Okay, getting there. Now I've noticed the bottom lip now needs a bit of a little bit more color, a little bit more. The edge here, there's a bit of shadow on the edge. Like that. There. Underneath there. It's just repeating this process, guys. It's the same thing. I'm using the same process to paint in everything really on this side of her face. Just a few more lines and bits and pieces. Like I said, I haven't really drawn in too much on that left-hand side, but I want to get in that, this line here that comes down, that really makes it look like she's smiling more. See, and when people smile, they kind of they get these lines around their mouth sometimes, around there, here and then down, and also like around their eyes, you get these like little lines around the edges of the eyes. I find that also really increases the authenticity of the smile. When people, when you get asked to take a photo, you don't really want to get a photo taken and you just smile like this. It's kind of how I look in most of my photos, because I don't really like it. But yeah, the lines around the eyes are crucial, I think, in making it look like a real smile. Not someone that's just overly happy about something. Okay, we're getting there. I can really just opt for simplicity. But when I get off the camera, what I'm going to do is, probably, if I got a bit of time, what I'll do is actually just, I'll follow this process and just continue to detail. Continue to add more paint here and there. you know, I did say before that I try to scrub off a little bit to get in some highlights. I'll just show you what I mean by that, guys, so that you know if you have missed out a bit of highlight or something like that there, what you can do. I don't know if this is really going to work. I'm going to just try it anyway, yeah? I've got a filbert brush, and this is it's kind of like a round brush, it's a flat brush that's been rounded off on the edges. And so what I can do is just scrub a bit there. Oh, we need some clean water. Scrub a bit here. Lift. Scrub a bit here. Just dry off that brush. Scrub a bit there. Lift. And here, underneath here, I'd say there's a bit of highlight there. Scrub a bit like that. And you can either just leave it. You know, just leave it because the brush picks up some of that paint. Or you can lift off as well. You know, I'd missed off some here as well. Missed off a bit here. So I'm going to just scrub a dub here. Bit of light here on her cheek. Okay, scrub a little bit there. Look at that. A little bit of paint coming off. Lift. Careful. Because it can look a bit funny if you don't blend it properly. Alright. Here. Lift. Here. Lift. You can use any kind of brush. If you've got a guys, if you've got a round brush, just use that. I just find this to be so much easier using a filbert brush. It's only something that I've been doing recently, actually. That, you know, you can see some of these areas. Even the highlights are looking a bit too sharp around the edges, so we can lift further around the edges to soften, like that. Soften here. It kind of has a more dramatic type of a look, but yeah, using this, soften a bit more around the edges. Oh, that needs to be carried up a bit. Just the bridge of a nose, that's getting a bit of that light there. Just a bit of that right hand side of a nostril. Bit of the light there. There. What else have we got? Maybe a bit underneath the eye here. A bit underneath the eye here. Lift. Yeah, on top of the eyebrow. Okay. Here, underneath the chin, these two bits, little highlights there. And you're not going to recover, you know, all the paper, but you're going to certainly be able to lighten just a little bit, and indicate kind of indicates just the roundness of the cheeks, little. Okay. And if you get that bit of paper ready, so then you can just dab off very quickly afterwards, then you'll be okay. All right. So that's that technique, guys. In case you were wondering what I was going to do afterwards. Another thing that I want to do that I've forgotten is her ear. So let's just pop in a bit of detail. Just drop in some paint in here. Bit of darkness. The inside there. It's kind of like a reddish color mixed with a bit of neutral tint. Yeah. Not the most accurate, but enough to tell what is going on. Okay. Softer edge, Darren. Bit of a softer edge. Not here, but maybe here. That's going to be slightly sharper. Like that. But here at the bottom, just soften off a bit. Darker. Then here, this has got to be darker. Like that. Something like that. Not perfect, but it's okay. Let it dry and we'll see how it looks. One of the things that a a lot of the beginner painters do is that they don't let that previous layer dry and keep fiddling around and adding things in there until it and you have to remember that there's only a certain amount of layers. There's only a certain amount of layers and detail that you can add with each layer. So don't try to add too much detail in each layer. You know, let it dry, come back to it later. And little lines here, a few little lines and things there. Dab off that bit of paint a bit there. Like I said, it's just at this point fine detailing, and then once I get in to the background, we'll add in some colors, maybe a little bit of gouache for some white highlights in her hair. But I think we're close to being done, very close to being done. You know, here I'm just picking up some darker paint, so you can see a bit of darker paint here. I'm trying to just darken this bit under her eyes and in this sort of section like that. Was missing just that little oomph there. A little bit of dry brush in some areas, and the nostrils as well, like that. There we go. Bit of that there, bit of this line coming out there on her eye. Again, so important to indicate that smile, make it look a bit more authentic. Okay, a bit darker around here maybe. Yeah. And if you guys are interested in learning more portraiture and getting a few extra tips, I do have a couple or a few places that you can access all my classes. I've got 38 classes, and they're a combination of portraiture and landscape classes. And you can pop onto patreon.com/watercolor mentor. You can go to my, I've got a school that I recently set up as well, watercolormentor.com/academy, that allows you to get access to all 38 of my courses for one price. And I will upload all future courses to there as well. So it's really good value. And I'm actually in the process of putting together, I'm nearly finished another portrait class, which I'll upload in there, and I'll go through in a lot more detail than I can here, because I've got more time to just record and put together those videos. So if you do want to support me, all that stuff is available if you look at the description of the video. It's all in there. And got quite a few happy patrons and people, students who are already part of that school. There's reviews, online reviews and stuff that you can check as well if you want to know a little bit more. I'm just going to check the chats. How are we all doing, guys? How are we all doing? I think I've been off with the fairies for a bit. Teresa says not wrinkles, it's wisdom lines. Yes, it's a good way to put it. Lucia, I know that you've been painting for a long time and that you are extraordinary artist, but do you think that by teaching us, do you have... just going to read that again. Do you think that by teaching us, do you have any other improvements at your level? Oh, of course. Yeah, everyone is a learner. Everyone is always learning something. I have got, in my opinion, I've still got a really long way to go in terms of mastering this medium. And there's many different styles that I want to learn and experiment with as well. You're always learning. And anyone who says that they know everything, they've mastered something completely, well, I don't believe that. Because you know, one of my most favorite portraiture artists is a guy called Liu Yi, Liuyi. If you ever look at his works, incredible. I've not seen anyone do portraiture like that in watercolor besides him. It's all almost predominantly wet and wet, but the details and the softness and everything is incredible. And you know, even artists like that, they say they've got so much, you know, you know, in their 60s, 70s, just saying they've still got so much to learn. There's no way that I, at my age, have mastered this. Okay, and you can get to a certain level of proficiency, and then from that point on, it's just slow, very small incremental improvements. Helena says, hi, I'm Helena from Malaysia. Good to see you. Thank you for coming along, Helena, and I hope you're enjoying the session. Angie says, excellent detail. Thanks, Angie. And Kathy says, yeah, I agree, wisdom lines. Fantastic. Let's have a look on YouTube. Who we got here? We've got Christina says thank you. Anna Novakova says this is great. And where are you watching? Where are you watching from? Anna, are you from sounds like maybe a Ukrainian or a Russian name. I was actually I did a trip to Europe and Russia a few years ago, and I visited St. Petersburg, Moscow. It was amazing. I took a lot of photos, and that's where I kind of actually got the idea of starting to teach and make some classes based on places I traveled to. So I kind of got the inspiration from that trip. Yvette says, I have lots of texture. My paper is peeling, not 100% cotton. Yeah, it can be the case. With all this layering over the top, what I'm doing here, the paper's got to be able to take it. Otherwise, yeah, you can run into some troubles here and there. And where I'm at in Australia, we can get a relatively large sheet of watercolor paper for like $8 to $10, and I prefer to invest that extra bit of cash into some good paper, because if I'm going to be sitting here painting for 2 hours, I don't want to be let down by something as simple as the paper I'm using. If I can get my hands on this paper, yeah, I'll go do it. But with that said, when I started out, I didn't have any of this stuff. I just used what I had, used the materials I had at home, and whatever I was able to afford. So, great. What I'm going to do at this stage, because I think, look, most of the details in here, I think you guys certainly grasp the techniques and probably have a good understanding now that I've explained a few times of what I'm doing. All I will do really from this point on is the same thing, just the same thing, layer and add more details and check the reference, layer, check the details, soften here, adjust. It's like it's the longest part of the painting, and you can just be here for ages. And I know it's going to take quite a long time to go through all of those details, but I think I'm about 85 to 90% done here. Sometimes too much details can also detract from the simple beauty, the simplistic sort of beauty of a scene. So I tend to I don't know, when do you stop? When is finished? And finished is just a state that you determine. It's a state that you determine, and often, we know it intuitively when we're like, we're done. We sort of just look at it and we're like, okay, that's it. Got nothing more to put in there. But you determine when it's finished. Yeah, and normally I don't rework things after I've painted them, but I'll probably take a bit of time to just put on some music later and see if I can get in a few extra details in there. Okay, so look, most of that's there. What I'll do now is I'm going to put in a bit of a background. I'm going to put in a bit of gouache in there. I'm going to be using some purple, I think. Let's use some purple. And I've got this larger flat brush here. This is my most favorite bit. I love this bit because it's so fun. It's the background just cutting around and things. It's exciting. let me just, what I'll do is that I'll wet this area of her hair, okay, because I want it to look, I don't know, a little bit, maybe a little bit fluffy around the edges. A little bit. Just soften this, what's going on here. Grab that. This is what happens when you, when you paint for a bit and your water gets a bit dirty. You're going to have bits of that mixed in, but that's okay. That's okay. It's not much. Just soften that edge a bit there. And let's pick up some colors. I'm going to be using some, I've got some Imperial Purple. I love this color and the granulating properties of it, but it's very, as you can see, very vibrant. So I'm going to grab some 𝗪𝗙𝗙𝗧𝗏. I'm not sure, I think it's 𝗪𝗙𝗙𝗏. Just a bit of brown ochre, which is granulating. Drop a bit in here. This is a great color for its granulation properties, and also I've used this before to sort of dull down some other colors a bit. Drop that in there. Let's just drop it in. There we go. That's a bit better. Yeah, that's a little bit better. But I will have splashes of this fun in that little bit of. Look at that bit of blue, bit of cerulean here. You know, a bit of this color here, which is like a purplish lilac color. Let's put a bit here, there, maybe a bit up there. You might think I'm going nuts, but it works. It works because I don't, you know, I like to have a background that looks a bit more interesting. Looks like there's something else going on in there. Okay, some of this will dry, some of this will just, yeah, some of it will dry, and some of it will be kind of softer edges like this, see? But the most important thing, of course, is doing a bit of cutting around the face of your subject. So here, you'll see I'm going to go very close to the face. In fact, where is my flat brush? A little flat brush is my trick here. We're just dropping a bit of purple and darker paint. I'm going to increase the contrast here more. Yeah, a bit more purple. Increase this contrast here across her face. Still wet enough. Get one go at this. There. There we go. And breathe again. Where is the other brush? Where is that? There we go. This brush. I love these little 𝗪𝗕𝗦𝗡𝗏, little watercolor mop brushes. They pick up so much water. Should I add in some pink in there? I think I'll just go with a bit more of that 𝗪𝗙𝗙𝗏, because again, too many colors in the background can start making things look out of place, a bit gaudy for these type of portraits. So I'm going to use a bit of this brownish sort of color, which I've already used up the top there. I'm just going to come and darken down here near her clothes. Now, near her clothes, we want to create lighter areas. Why is that? Well, because we want to contrast light and dark. On a face, colors are lighter, so I've made the background darker. In the clothes, darker, so we'll make the background lighter. It's not a, it's not a, something that's has to be always done all the time. But I find that it helps a lot to create interesting contrasts. I just want to re-wet that area. Some of this is starting to dry off, and I don't want it to dry too much. I want little bits and pieces, but you can see some little fascinating things happening here. When you paint wet into wet, things happen, interesting things happen that I don't really care what happens, but I just know that something fun, something interesting will happen up here. Yeah, here's a bit of black, a bit of lunar black. You know, ooh, that's a bit much maybe, but we'll see. We'll see, because how it looks after will be different. And you know, when you're painting abstracts, and someone commented on one of my abstracts the other day and said, "Yeah, what a waste of paint." But you know what? Abstracts are great for practicing compositions and backgrounds and doing stuff like this. So I really do recommend, just for the sake of learning how to compose and find color combinations, simple color combinations that work together. Okay, I think I got to get rid of that. That looks a little bit funny there. Okay, bit of purple here, bit more purple. I love this purple. It's so vibrant though. Just a little bit much. You just soften it down, we'll be okay. Bit there. Yeah, look at that. It's starting to blend in. It's starting to take shape and come together. Around her ear here as well, let's just put in a bit of darkness to just cut around her ear. And there as well. I do want a little bit more darkness in that section actually. I go through that brown like crazy. I don't know what it is, this brown ochre. It just, because I think it's an actual mineral. Yeah, it's definitely a mineral. But from what I found anyway, mineral paints don't really go as far as the other sort of synthetic lab created paints. But they have incredible granulation and like unpredictable sort of stuff that I just love, because we've got structure in here. I want a bit of unstructured stuff going on as well. Okay, there, good. And you know, a bit of mixing in with the clothes is good too. Look, soften this edge here, perhaps soften that edge there. Okay, sometimes you'll find that there's just areas of extreme sharpness that we can sort of soften off a bit, like that. This bit here into a hair, a little bit there, just a little bit of extra darkness in there. Soften off and connect onto the background a bit. Right. I'm trying to create continuity in here and make everything look like it's together, joined together, like that. Good. Now, little bits and pieces to finish off in here. You know, I can pick up a bit of neutral tint on the palette. And we're going to drop in a little bit at the base, maybe here. Just getting in the corner, maybe some bits of her outline of her clothing. This, there. Again, it's not like a 100% thing, but just little bits and pieces. What else was I going to do? You know, I was going to add in some gouache into her hair, but actually I think I'll leave it. I like the simplicity at the moment. But you know, you can at home pick up a bit of white gouache and add in a few strands in here. Just make sure that it's not as white as that right hand side. It's kind of like a muted down white. It's because it's in shadow as well. So let me just take this off and we can have a look and assess and see how it looks. I just have not, this little section in the corner, I've not painted that bit, so I'll quickly add in a bit there. Okay, so the most fun bit of the painting. I don't tape down all my all my scenes, just some of them. The border looks so much better if if you frame a painting. Framing is half of oops, close the window. There we have it. And I'll just move this sheet of plastic on the back so you can see how it looks. I hope the contrast is looking okay, and that you can see all right. It's gone a bit dark here at the moment. I might just increase it a little bit so perhaps you can just see better. Okay. There we have it. I think what I'll do afterwards as well is I'm going to go and soften off some parts of the right-hand side of her head, work a bit on her smile a bit more. I still think that I could work on her smile a bit more, especially some of these lines coming down her face. But I think it's I'm fairly pleased with this. So let me know what you think, guys. Love to hear from you, and how you found this session. And Yvette says looks great, and Christina says pretty good. Thanks for doing this. Thank you, Christina. And who else have we got here? I'm just having a look. Margaret says not happy at all with this. I need to go back to basics. Yeah. Margaret, this was a very tricky one, and I think with the first step of getting in the soft shadows on her face, very, very difficult task to do, and to be able to know where to control the paint to make it stop at a certain point, so that it doesn't go into the lighter section of a face. Very tricky thing to do. It's the more you practice, the better you get at it. So don't be discouraged. Certainly don't be discouraged, Margaret. So why has the camera gone a bit funny? It's got a bit of light. I think the light's just coming off in funny rays. Let's have a look. Who else have we got? Thank you, Kate. 𝗪𝗔𝗧𝗥𝗘𝗦𝗦𝗘𝗦 says, couldn't tell. Did you put wash over top of her hair? Yeah, I put a little bit of a wash up here. A quick wash on the left side. That was to join up the background there for a bit. Join the background with the hair a little, soften that line where her hair touches the background. And he says, thank you so much. We'll watch again and work on it. Late watching. Why didn't you add shadow on left? Shadow on left. Why didn't you add the shadow on left? Yeah, I mean, I've got a it's a soft shadow. And that's another option. I mean, at this stage, when it all dries, what you'll find is that you can go in there, spray it down with water again, make sure it's consistent, spray it all down with water, and then you can add in more shadows and darker shadows over the top of that if you feel like it's you want to create more contrast. At the moment, they're very soft shadows, probably softer than in the in the photo, in the actual photo itself. Margaret's saying, love your painting, but why is the side of her face so white? Let me have a look. This right-hand side of her face there. Yeah, I think I've certainly left in a little bit more light on that right-hand side of the face. So the reference picture, it's certainly a lot more it's a little bit darker on that right side of the face. So still a few things that if I wanted to get it looking more like the reference, I can go in there, spray it down, add a bit more color. But yeah, this is the result for today. Margaret says, Darren, they are all difficult for me. I'll post my pic later. Yeah. Yeah, fantastic, Margaret. I think all the practice is doing you well. The first one, the first portrait, I know you're very happy with that. Sometimes you know, when you're progressing, it's not always, it's not always a linear kind of thing. You know, it's a couple of steps back, one step forwards at times. So keep up with it. And Scarlett says, yeah, the left side of the face. Yeah, so definitely with the left side of the face, I could go a little bit, maybe a little bit darker there. I think I'm all right with how it looks at the moment. On camera, I think the contrasts look more exaggerated than they actually do in person, because of the camera settings that I have on at the moment. But yeah, in person it looks a lot less. So like this contrast here between the light and the dark, it's a little bit less. But again, you can still redo things, spray it down, add more color, shadow on top. I just tend to accept it, the final result, and just stick with it. Teresa says, I like these soft shadows. Sometimes dark shadows are harsh. Yeah, and that was something that I was worried about. You know, in terms of getting too dark of a shadow on there and obscuring the facial details as well. And with you know, it's one of those things when you're painting wet to wet, it looks darker, but then when it dries, it goes lighter. So you have to compensate for that and add more, a little bit more color in there. So yeah, it might be something I do later and darken down that left side of the face a little bit. But let's have a look. Who else have we got in here? Let's have a look here. We've got thank you Christina. And Shanolan says, thank you for another awesome and informative portrait class. Fantastic. Appreciate you being here, Shanolan. And Neil says portrait of your grandma looks great, and I like her. Thank you guys. My first time watercoloring in person, and I'm pleased with it, says Christina. Room for improvement, I'm sure, if I had better brushes. Yeah, brushes do make a difference. Paints and paper are probably more important. If you like the video, if you found some, that it's helped you out today, please do me a favor and share this around on your Facebook page, in some watercolor groups perhaps. And if I like the video as well, that helps me get it sent out to more people. Christina says, there's a picture of the event on Facebook. Okay, yeah, Christina. So you can upload it actually to the group. You'll go to more people. So facebook.com/groups/Watercolor Mentor, and upload it there. We'd love to have a look. Yvette says, mine is very small. The grid method will help me. Yeah, the grid method does help you transfer a reference photo on a lot faster and with much more accuracy. So you can give that a try at some stage. Let's have a look here. Scarlett says, do you freehand sketch? Yes, I do. I've got a few quick little portraits that I did yesterday, just some like really quick little ones, sporadic sort of ones like that. These took me maybe 10 minutes, to do each. Okay, maybe like 5 to 10 minutes. But when I sketch, I tend to sketch very quickly, and try to get in those details, more of like a gestural sort of drawing, I suppose. But drawing is very important. Drawing is super important. I only use the gridding method for portraits, not for landscapes and natural landscapes, anything like that. Excellent. Now, before I go, I'm going to just bring up my website, and what I'm going to do is just quickly show you the course that I've got on coming up. Well, basically just the big course that I've put together. Now, you can also register for a free trial of it, which allows you to access a bunch of materials in there that's available as well. So I'll just bring it up on the screen to show you guys what it looks like. as well as just give you a little sneak peek into my Patreon as well, if you're interested to take a look at it. So maybe I'll I'll have a few places. I mean, I've uploaded my courses to a whole variety of places. So let me just bring up the screens so you go. And courses and stuff like that, because well, no one else is going to do it, I suppose. So I'm going to have a look at the comments and final questions before I finish off, guys. Dawn says, amazing, it's all making sense now, thank you, from Scotland. Thank you, Dawn. Come along to the future demos as well. There's a few others that I've made in the past, just some portrait demos that you can have a look at, and they will help you out significantly as well. I cover sharp shadows. These are more softer shadows, but the other one I've done is more sharper shadows, like you know, like this handsome fella here. So let's have a look. Who else have we got? I'm just checking. There's a few more comments on YouTube. Let's have a look. And Christina says she'll send a picture. Let's have a look. I have China white, and it doesn't cover very well over highlights. Yeah, white gouache is better because it's more opaque. I think China white is still slightly more transparent. They grind the pigment particles to a smaller size, whereas gouache, it's got like chalk or something added into it. So when you add the highlights, it definitely stays there and it paints over the top of anything else. Yvette says, let's do the little ones one day. Yeah, sure. That's a good one. Like some quick little portraits, I think, and I can show you guys also how to sketch them and from reference photos to get a basic likeness. Someone says that's no sound. Oh no! I've forgotten to turn on the sound for the desktop cutout. Righto. Yeah, so basically I was just going through some of my my classes and things like that. So I have not added on the sound for that one, but maybe I'll do it next time. I'm not going to repeat myself, guys. I know you've been around for a bit. My mistake. So Panelist is bye now. Yeah, thanks for letting me know. I'll fix that up for next time. You know, technical stuff. Christina says she's posted the Facebook page. Fantastic. I'll take a look at it later, Christina. Thank you. Thank you for that. Guys, unless there's any more questions, I'll probably finish this off. In just a moment. So yeah, just let me know. But I was trying to add the audio for the other one before, and it doesn't kind of allow me to do it. The only other way I can do it is maybe if I bring up. Let me just try a little thing. Try a little thing like this. Maybe that helps, and you can still hear what's going on. Still learning how to use this streaming program, and I miss out, fortunately, on bits and pieces. But basically, I was just going through some of the courses that I had available for you guys, and anyone who's interested in a little bit more of my material. So this is the website that I have, which I've uploaded all my courses. You can check it out. Watercolormentor.thinkific.com has all 38 courses for one price, and you can sign up for a free trial up the top here, so you can have a look at what's included. But all the course curriculum is down the bottom, which is basically just a combination of every course that I've made, and I'll be uploading new ones there as well. Patreon, if you want to support me on Patreon, I'll be very appreciative. And also, if you're looking to try out some of my courses or support me on a longer term basis, each tier tells you what you get in each one. So that one there is 38 courses. Yeah, but then with each other tier you have a different number of courses in them as well. So you can try it out for a month, see how you go. But I'm sure you'll like it. And for those people who want to see and check out some of my individual courses, just buy them once off. These are all available. Once you purchase them, they're all available for life. You can go in there and just purchase them individually as well. So that's what I was trying to go on about before. But unfortunately, the audio cut off. But thank you for those of you who are still watching. Okie dokie. What am I doing? I'm just shifting everything around. Can I make this disappear? Yes, I can. Okay. Fantastic. So I'll finish it off. And thank you so much for the positive comments and painting along with me. And I'll catch you all around. Scarlett says, thanks. Your grandma is beautiful. She is very, very sweet. She. Okie dokie. So thank you, and I will catch you